Okay, welcome to Shots Fired. Usually we are joined by Kairos, Chisanga, and G, but we had to make way for the big dog this week. We had to make way for one Michael Venom Page. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. Doing well, still working hard.
I can see that. Happy New Year, if you can still say that on the second week of January.
Anything that can give happiness in our current climate is so try to drag it out as long as you can.
And it is a topical current climate. I mean, we're going to get to that, but before we bounce into obviously the main topic of discussion here today, and that is your involvement in the Taking the Initiative party, I just wanted to bring you back to the last time that we spoke. It was on audio, and it was just before you faced Ross Houston. I have to say, you sounded very energetic, you sounded very confident, and you put in an energetic and confident performance. But just looking at the post-fight interview, was that the Michael Venom Page that I was speaking to going into the fight that delivered on the night?
Not at all. I was quite annoyed at I can't really say, I can't really be specific at who to be annoyed at, but if I put Bellator as a collective, just because obviously it's the first time they've gone to France, big occasion, that France have actually opened the doors for MMA, so I really was excited to be a part of that, and I put on a show that I normally deliver on. But they had sprayed the canvas, and I believe it was due to the COVID regulations and so on and so forth. But just before I had come in, they sprayed the canvas, and for me it was like an ice rink, because of my style of fighting. Having that grip and being grounded on the floor, being able to be as agile as I possibly can be, is massively important for my style. And again, just because of the canvas being sprayed, it literally took my whole game away from me, and I just had to resort to Plan Z, as I said before. I literally, if anybody's watched me and followed my career, I've never fought like that ever, and I'm just talking about as a style. I was grounded, I had my guard up, and I was kind of just cautiously pressing forward, but I literally was worried about, with my style, if I was tried to maneuver in the way I would normally, I would have just kept slipping over, and that would have put me in a lot more danger.
Now, in terms of the quote unquote animosity and the build-up, Ross Houston was talking the big talk, talking the big game, and to a certain extent, you crushed that kind of like fanboy kind of theory out there that Ross was going to pose a massive and a big test, and you're going to get tripped up by this guy. Is that kind of like beef? Is that kind of animosity, if there was any, is that kind of crushed now, or do you and him still have a little bit of a chip on your shoulders?
No, to be fair, I didn't really have any. I didn't really pay attention to anything that he had said. If he had said anything prior, I was more just excited about the event, to be honest, just because of what it meant for our sport. And no, he's a lovely guy. I met, even when I met him before the fight, we had a nice exchange then. Spoke to him again since, and I've actually been in touch with him a few times as well. Yeah. After the fight, which is actually it's not as that doesn't happen as often. We don't always travel in the same circles. Our opponents, I'm talking about, it's harder to kind of stay in touch, or even want to. You kind of just focus on your own career. Yeah. But Ross is a really lovely person. I've spoken to him, and I wish him well. And someone coming in undefeated, he deserves to have that kind of confidence, and that going into the fight, I would have as well. So those kind of things, they don't bother me at all.
So if you'd allow me, just allow me a little bit of indulgence here. I'm going to play matchmaker. I'm going to put a few matchups to you. One of the people in the run up to your fight, and for the longest while, who has been like talking about you and the possibility of actually matching up with you has been Fabian Edwards. Now, we all saw what happened in his last fight. Is a fight with Fabian Edwards something that attracts you or interests you?
Not at all, to be honest.
Okay.
It's zero interest there. Just focusing on what is it, like, everyone knows the one person I want to kind of fight that I want to get back. Outside of that, it's the belt in my division. I'm not really interested in anything else.
And again, just indulging me in terms of matchmaking, obviously your long-standing feud with Paul Daly is something which people wanted to see run back, or some people. Others have wanted to skip over that one. But I take it from what you've said, that doesn't interest you either.
Yeah, not really. I feel like if he gave the fight that everyone was kind of expecting that night, if he came not to try and be tactical, just to get through the competition, if he actually came to fight, I think we would have had an amazing show, regardless of whoever won. I think we would have had an amazing show. And let's say, you know, the result was the same, I'd be more inclined to want to do that again if we had a fight. But if we had a proper fight in the first place. But I just don't. I believe he will come in and try to, again, just be tactical, just to try to claim a win over me. I think that's what's bugging him more than anything. And to be fair, that seems like it's his problem. And for me, I'm good to keep going and focus on focus on my career.
Final one, Naaman Gracie has been calling you out for the longest while. And just before Christmas, Scott Coker kind of alluded to the fact that that may be your next fight. Does that have any kind of like intrigue or interest for you? Someone like Naaman Gracie?
Yeah, definitely a lot more than the others. He's done amazing in his Bellator career, done amazing in his MMA career, full stop. Is just an absolute beast, but in one area.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's very dangerous for absolutely anybody that can kind of come up against him. And it's that old kickboxer versus jiu-jitsu type thing. Because when he's on his feet, he's in my world. When I'm on the ground, I'm in his world. So that's an interesting matchup, definitely.
Okay, just moving ever so slightly away from mixed martial arts. I'm intrigued by something that you said at the tail end of our conversation when we last spoke, and you talked about Black Lives Matter, but specifically you talked about the Taking the Initiative Party, and you said that there'll be more information forthcoming, there'll be more information put out there. And from what I've seen recently, that seems to be taking shape. Just on the Taking the Initiative Party, just talk to me about this, because your name is now being connected quite strongly with this. First of all, what's your role with the Taking the Initiative Party?
I've been privileged to be given the opportunity to be on the board and listening on decisions that potentially going to be made and be a part of that growth, because it's definitely going to be, you're going to see it growing more and more and get bigger and bigger, and it's nice to be there from the ground. But for me, obviously, my expertise is in sports. My expertise is in martial arts, being more specifically, and that's what I want to offer in this. For me, martial arts has done so much for me in my life. I've also taught and run schools, and I've seen how it's affected the kids that I've taught, even the adults that I've taught. And the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of students that I've taught over the years and where they are now, I know for a fact having this being incorporated somehow, we're still trying to figure out exactly where, but whether it's going to be to do with like free classes for people, especially for the young people, developing, giving them almost opportunities in the sports industry, and being that kind of role model and overseeing exactly how they can navigate through to actually, you know, do this for a living for themselves, whether it be in just it could be the physio side of things, it could be the strength and conditioning, it could just be PT, and there's multiple opportunities there for a lot of these youngsters that love sports. But it's just about focusing them, and that's for me personally, that's where I want to be most involved in, and that's what they've kind of, you know, said to me. This is what they're happy for me to be a part of.
You know, having cut mini documentaries with you and having done them in your environment where you were thriving, and that was, we visited a school where you actually worked and saw you obviously interacting in the school environment. It's obvious that you care about community in particular, the youngsters. But I just interested in the stage before that. I know that you were pictured at the Black Lives Matter movement, the march in the summer or last summer, we're talking about 2020. Was that the kind of catalyst that made you think about getting involved in a political entity? What was it? I'm looking for, like, the springboard into the Taking the Initiative Party.
I feel like, especially on social recently, I've been a bit more vocal about how kind of where I stand with a lot of things that are going on, and it was just really bugging me that, and even up till now, the steps that are being taken, I genuinely feel is a lot more damaging. But we don't seem to have a say. We don't seem to have a true voice, and we don't seem to have a true representation of the working class to actually get our voices in terms of how these things are affecting us. I think it's over this time. I've really been, I think just because it's emotionally affected me, watching how it's affected other people, loved ones that I know close to me, and people further that, you know, just in passing when I'm talking to them, and how these things are affecting their lives, and they're telling me, then coming across TTIP and listening to exactly their mission statement and exactly what they're trying to achieve, and giving the working class a platform to actually, for me, it's not just about the marches. That's great, we can draw some attention, but I always say the same thing. Even when I was there, I was speaking to quite a few people. I said, yeah, you know, this is great, but what's next? What is next? And I knew it was going to be that type of thing. It was a bit of a fad at the time. You know, some people just jumped on board because it was something to do. It's something everyone was talking about. People are getting involved, but a lot of those people that were very massively vocal in that time are now, they're either not saying anything, or they're not doing anything, which is more important. And for me, that was me asking the question, even to myself. So what do I do now? So what, I'm out searching to figure out who can I partner with, where can I best, serve this purpose that we know we're trying to achieve. And like I said, speaking to the guys at the Take Initiative Party, it was just perfect. It kind of fell into place. And I'm just really excited about the work that we're doing and the work that we're going to be doing in the future.
So I've obviously jumped to the conclusion, and having done a little bit of research about the party, it's underpinned by politics, right? So you are involved now in a political party. You talked very briefly there about the damage. When you look at people like Lewis Hamilton, when you look at people like, the sports figures of this world, I'm thinking specifically about Anthony Joshua. Figures like that, getting involved in politics, putting their head above the parapet, they tend to grate against their fan base. They tend to lose fans. You, and I know that you are a fan favorite. Are you not obviously apprehensive because of the repercussions that you now face, given that you are now involved in a political party?
Yeah, and that's actually a good question. But what I would kind of put back to yourself, if you've seen how I am as a character when performing, if I genuinely cared about people's opinions, I wouldn't even do that. do you understand what I mean, though? Like, my style can be very infuriating. You know what I mean? Some people can look at it and be wowed by it, but then there is the other half. That it's not just like, oh no, I'm not a fan. They're like, they genuinely don't like me. They think I'm this, they think I'm that. They have quite a lot to say on the other side as well. Now, again, if I cared too much about those kind of things, there's a lot that I just wouldn't do. But I know to myself the effects and the positive effects that I can actually give being a part of this party, and what the party can do. And it, as long as they are true to what they've delivered on so far, and what their plans are, then I'm happy to support them 100% in spite of losing fans. That's something else for me. That I don't need fans to do what I do, but I appreciate fans that appreciate what I'm doing.
Breaking down TTIP, taking the initiative party, it is such an apt name because it falls within a space which doesn't exist at the moment. The government aren't taking the initiative, specifically on free school meals. We've seen the paltry rubbish that these children are having delivered. Is this an area where the Taking the Initiative Party are going to get involved and being quite vocal about nutritious meals in particular, but children's education and betterment and advancement in general?
If you see some of the stuff that we're actually doing already, again, our main focus at the moment, because we have to take it bit by bit, is in the Croydon and Sutton area, and the Croydon and Sutton community. And if you've seen and heard about Croydon going bankrupt, the actual community, the community itself is actually, they're not giving back to their own community. They're taking from the community and not putting those funds back into further help and develop. There's also they said there's the most gangs in the whole of Europe are in Croydon, which is insane. I did not know these kind of things, and even that, just kind of highlighting those kind of things, it makes you understand why we are needed. But we're already doing food delivery services already. Right. So regardless of what the government were doing, led by Sasha, she's a force to be reckoned with. She's like, no, we're gonna make it happen anyway. And this is where I feel like people need to understand is, instead of constantly looking up at the government saying, can you do this and can you do that? Let's go out and do it ourselves. We have the power to do that. And now we're building a community that can make these decisions for ourselves. It's fine. Like, the government's not willing to put their hand in their pocket, but we'll do it ourselves. And while we're doing that, we're also fighting the government to make sure that they put their hands in their pocket and do what's best for the communities and do what's best for these kids. So we're working on both sides.
And just on, getting in there and not waiting for, actually taking the initiative and not waiting for the government to actually get behind you. How can people actually access your service? Is it an online thing where they actually sign up? How does someone like myself in East London have access to this? Not that I need it, but I'm just saying, for example.
Yeah. So the best way, well, even at present right now, we're actually running a Zoom meeting. This is open to the public for talking about mental health during this time, because that is massive. And even a person in my position, shall I say, you realize how these things can take a toll on you. Even being in, say, a bit more privileged position, I've got access to a gym, that things that people don't have right now, and it still can be difficult, and that's for me. So I couldn't even imagine people that are not being able to come out their house, or not exercise, or not all these things that they would normally be able to almost distract themselves with, unable to do. So mental health is a massive issue at the moment. So we have a lot of Zoom meetings that I'm going to be promoting myself as well. You can go on to www.ttip.org.uk, and you'll find our mission statement there. You'll find all of our information, and again, you can be updated with all the events that we're going to be running, and again, all the Zoom meetings that we're going to be taking place in, and you can be involved in it. Listen in. It could be a case of, from your house, going to jump on one of the Zooms, and I just want to hear what these guys are about first. You know, there's no pressure into doing anything. I just want to listen in, and if there's something that, if I'm hearing things that, you know, it resonates with me, I really do believe in what these guys are saying, then, you know, from there on, you can kind of ask what steps do you need to take.
And you know, you just mentioned a very key and integral part of your armory there, and that's Sasha Johnson. I think you alluded to her earlier. You talking about Sasha
Yeah.
Johnson, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
One of the key concerns a lot of people have voiced about the Take Initiative Party is the inclusion of Sasha Johnson, because I just want to bring up a quote for you. She was alleged to have said, and she hasn't been able to defend herself because she's no longer in the space where this was said. Apparently on Twitter, this screen cap that I'm reading from now, and I'll quote verbatim, "The white man will not be our equal, but our slave. History is changing." Now, first off, did she actually say that?
In all honesty, I couldn't even quote on that myself, because I haven't even, this is the first I'm actually hearing of it personally.
Right.
One thing I would say about her, she is massively passionate about what she's doing, massively passionate. And everyone, you know, we've been approached before, like, you know, well, having her involved, is that a good thing? But for
Yeah.
me, we're about the working class, and from all angles there, and there's always going to be extremes in every case. Some people are, you know, all I'm asking for is just this. Some people are like, no, like, you know, I'm fed up and we want that. But our job is to listen to absolutely everybody. Our job is to cover all angles, regardless of their opinions. It doesn't mean that everything that is said means that that's what we're going to be going to do. It does mean, though, that we're willing to listen to absolutely everybody, regardless. And it's not just about Sasha, it's everybody that's involved, anybody in the working class, which I believe Labour kind of started off that way. And I feel like they've kind of lost touch with that. And even the people that are representing, again, there's nobody that I can look at there that I can be like, yeah, that's me. You know, I can see that they come from the same struggles, and they've experienced this. There's nobody I'm looking at that's involved in that party. But again, with the Taking Initiative Party, it's a mixture of everybody, and that's the important thing. It's allowing the people that don't get their voices heard, allowing them to be heard. And I believe it's important for someone like Sasha to be involved.
And just on, you know, those voices that aren't heard, one of the exciting things for me when I saw your face attached to this was that I had a feeling, and maybe you can put me right, and maybe you can manage my expectations here, but I had a feeling that Black people's views and issues would be at the forefront of what you'd be doing, what you'd be defending, what you'd be putting forward. And I just wondered, considering that there is this disenfranchisement of Black people and politics, is that one of your aims and objectives, to galvanize the Black vote, as it were, or to have more of a voice for Black people, especially in the UK?
Yes, I think I represent a lot of the people that watch me out there, the young Black guys. Again, from all the communities that I come from, they see my style, and they again like it or love it or hate it, but they can see it. And I feel like I need to be the example. One thing that I was never taught in school was really politics, and I think even that in itself is going to be such a major part of your life, and yet in the school system they don't have it there available to you. So where else do they get access to this other than it just affecting them when they live day to day? So I feel like having people like myself and encouraging other sports stars and musicians and so on and so forth, people that all these youngsters are going to be listening to and watching, and making it a norm that politics is something that we get into, then they'll start looking into these things themselves from a younger age. They're like, oh yeah, you know, MVP's doing it, you know, Stormzy, and you know, this person and that person, all these people, they're all involved in politics. That's the norm now. We need it to become the norm, so youngsters don't feel a way about investigating in these things and signing up to vote and voting. It's not. I genuinely, from most of my life, was like, I don't need to vote. And that was the ignorance that I had. But again, if I haven't been involved in politics, I didn't even really understand it. And even there's so much more even today that I'm learning. I'm like, wow, okay, is that how it works? Oh, okay, I did not know that. And for me, that's a shame. That's a shame. I think we should all at least have the understanding of what's going on in terms of decisions that are being made, and being aware of these decisions, so we can again try to do something and put an action in yourself to affect that change and potentially do it in your favor.
I mean, just on that and on action and empowerment, one of the things that you said earlier intrigued me, and I wanted to get your take and your angle on it. And you may well be doing something specifically on this, but the
Mhm,
Forever family, which I'm sure you're familiar with, they were
mhm,
black clad, they had the stab-proof vests on, and they were marching. One of their key tenets, one of their key kind of like aspirations, not just empowerment, but making sure that, you know, the black community can defend themselves. Does
mhm.
defense come in any way, shape, or form in what you're trying to actually instill within the party as well?
100%. So, for example, now within the some Jewish communities, they have their own police force,
Yeah,
um, and I think it's you feel more comfortable when it's people that you can just genuinely feel more familiar with. It's not a them and us situation anymore. And I think it's important for us to, or one of the things we want to, eventually build. These are all going to be long-term goals. It's going to be a hard battle, but these kind of things are going to encourage more people that are from the working class getting involved in the police force, from from the black community getting involved in the police force and feeling confident and being represented in a positive light and being accepted from, because again, one of the especially from being the areas that I was from, going to be being a police officer, it's immediately disassociated.
mhm,
We don't want to be your friend anymore. And these are the kind of things that we need to change. Just educating the youngsters that no, we need more of you involved so we can affect that change. So you are the person now stopping another young black person, another young black woman, or a black woman or man, and you understand, no, we're going to do it the correct way. We're not going to be physical unnecessarily. We're going to use one thing that I feel like a lot of the police tend to struggle with, a couple of things, but is being able to communicate effectively. Yeah, I don't necessarily understand the slang, and it can come out a bit more harsh if I don't understand it. And a
yeah,
lot of these guys also, because of what's being pumped in the media, they tend to be fearful. So they go into these areas already scared, and then you're listening to someone that you don't really understand, and from a place of fear, and
yeah.
it only helps ignite a negative response. But again, if it is our own, shall I say, going in, and somebody that is more familiar, somebody that I can actually talk to on a bit more level, I can calm you down a little bit, a lot easier, and things just don't necessarily need to escalate at all. But we have both sides have a respect for each other. It's gonna take time. Really is gonna take time, but it is important that, as you say, we do address these things. Is these 100% all the things that we're looking to push for and help change? Because I'm sure you are as well. But I'm sick of the tired. Even today, I heard about a horrible story in Cardiff, and I'm sick and tired of hearing it now. Like I really am, and we do need to change this.
I mean, just in terms of changing the narrative, for me, one of the biggest projects that I've been involved with over the last few months has been anti-knife crime. Is there an angle to what you're doing now that incorporates anti-knife crime? Because I know that a good friend of ours, Jimmy Manua, and Leon Edwards, and I believe Darren Till were putting
Mhm.
together an initiative. Is anti-knife crime on your radar as well?
It has to be, because it's so damaging in our community at the moment. To be fair, a lot of the reasons why I would go into schools, set up programs and so on and so forth, is to try to help refocus. To be fair, something Akala said as well is you don't see the successful youngsters involved in too much craziness because they're successful. So we have to find a way for them to be successful in their own right, and it peels them away from the struggles of their community, because you actually now have something to live for. A lot of these youngsters don't have anything to live for, and it's a case for me, again, from my angle, going into that community, as I said at the beginning, getting them into martial arts classes just to kind of get their focus, instead of them being out in the public at that time, they're coming in to do some training. And then refocusing them, giving them a purpose. So now it's like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to actually become a professional in the sport? Yes, no. Okay, next way you might want to just work on sports science, and I can give you that angle. You become a bodybuilder or a fit. There's so many different angles that fitness can kind of help refocus people and our youngsters. And I honestly don't understand why we don't have some form of martial arts in schools. Again, like I said, it's massively helped who I am and build who I am. And I've been in all the worst areas and yet never been involved in all of this stuff, simply because I had another reason, something else to drag me away from it. So you build another peer group that you respect. And instead of getting, oh yeah, let's come and do this, it's like, you know what, I'd prefer to disappoint you than to disappoint them. So, and I want to try and set these things up for a lot of the youngsters.
And you spoke, like, again, briefly there about the police and police interaction. Is that something that you're looking to build as a bridge in terms of a party with the police? I know you're going to carry on doing what you're doing in spite of the police, but does an element of police training, is that something that's kind of incorporated within what you're doing? Because a lot of the issues, the problem is down to institutional racism, yes, but it's down to like poor training and fear. Now, those three elements, they are a powder keg. Is this something that you're looking at?
You know what? Yes. For me personally, this is one of the things that I wanted to actually go in, and I've actually done as a youth. So when I think I was probably about 14, 15, and I went into I went on this course called the Black Police Association.
Oh, right.
And this is when I did it for a few years, and then we actually developed and started our own group called the Young Black Police Association. And this was again many years ago. So the whole purpose was to get young ethnic youths to understand the police and vice versa. So we went into Hendon police training facilities, and we would work with them during their training. Yeah, and like we'd like. Oh, is it?
Yeah, he was an electrician. He wasn't a copper, but anyway.
Okay, yeah. So, but all these kids would towards the end of the week. At first, you see everybody's backs up, like you're around, surrounded by police. I don't even want to be here.
Yeah.
And towards the end, you start to have a bit more of an appreciation. Not only are we helping them train and explaining to them how we feel when you approach a certain way, we was also being educated on how a stop and search should go, what they should be covering, and things that you should say. And just having that power, if a police officer approaches you and you even sound like you know what you're saying, I feel like it takes a different turn immediately. I have to respect you because you seem to know what you're talking about. So I now have to make sure that I'm on my P's and Q's and I'm doing my job exactly. But I feel like when you don't know what to say to police officers when you're being approached and so on and so forth, you tend to just be irritated that you're even being stopped. And then again, your responses can almost incite more negativity. Yeah, so we were looking at it from both sides. But even from that experience years ago, it's always something that I wanted to go back into, because I still feel their training, or the training to become a police officer, is not enough. It's not enough at all. And I'm being nice. And even down to their physical training, even if I could be a part of that, one thing that a lot of people in my years of combat have all said is, every time I've met a fighter, they're just so calm. They're so nice. and they're not over or especially with my style, they always expect me to be like that, just walking around on the road. But when you have the power to know that you could physically do better than most people walking around, you don't walk around with a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
There's no need. You feel empowered as a person. And I feel like if I can get into the police force and do intense training and show them what, like really push them, show them how they should be subduing somebody if they had to, in a safe way, not just brute force and swinging, because you end up becoming you're just another person on the street fighting, because you don't know moves. You don't know. If I had to take somebody down, I'm gonna do it, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But you know what I mean? So these are the things that I want to try to start. Well, we're gonna try to start working. If we have to figure out a way, they have to open the door as well. We have to meet halfway, and they have to be willing to understand that what they're doing currently is wrong. And so many people hate, admitting a flaw, which I see is a problem. If we made a mistake on anything, it's like, yep, you know what, we shouldn't have done it this way. Best course of action now is to do this. Yeah. Even in the Piers Morgan, Matt Hancock video conference that they had, was it today or the day before?
This morning, yeah.
This morning,
yeah.
He couldn't even admit that me voting against something and now changing your mind is, for me, regardless of your reason, you voted against it. You now seem to be on side. Then say, yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong to vote for that. I had my reasons. Not willing to share them. I had my reasons, but I'm glad that we're now on this page. But he couldn't even say that, and I find that there's such a flaw in humanity. It seems to be at the moment, especially all these high-profile, high influences within the government. They should be able to admit if they've made a mistake, and that was definitely a mistake.
Unfortunately, just to give you a little bit of insider knowledge, I worked for government for 25 years, and there's an ethos and there is a mantra of the MPs: never back down, never apologize. You will never hear an apology, an outright apology, because that's the mantra. But speaking of mantras, I wanted to get your take on Patrick Hutchinson. Now, Patrick Hutchinson, as you know, was the chap who was photographed quite iconically, and this was flashed around the world, saving an ex-police officer. I believe he was a British transport police officer. Anyway, an ex-police officer from a crowd during the BLM protest. What's your view on that standpoint, that kind of like savior mentality, regardless of his ethos? He was with a racist group, got separated from them, but was still save worthy. What's your take on that?
This, for me, he breaks up the them and us situation. We're not trying to make it a them and us situation. We're trying to say, from this standpoint, we're unhappy with certain things that you guys are doing, and I feel that needs to be changed. But us acting exactly the same as you guys doesn't change anything at all. And in that situation, I'd like to think I'd do exactly the same thing, regardless. You could have been shouting at me 2 minutes before. In that moment, I always try to remind people, regardless skin color, height, weight, we're all human, regardless of any of that. So and some bad behavior is bad behavior. I'll never agree to it or condone it. So he was 100% right to do what he did, and should be applauded for it. But again, he's still, after that point, is still against what these guys are about. It's voicing your opinion and then doing the right thing is two different things.
So Patrick Hutchinson represents one organization. There's the Forever Family, there's BLM, and then there's the Taking the Initiative Party. Is there a space now? Because I think that what we are really terrible as Black organizations, Black people in general, is working together. Is there any space for them within what you're doing and to work more collaboratively with other organizations?
I'm sure that I'm very sure that there is. To what degree or how it will come about, it's not going to be down to me solely at all. I'll probably be involved in those meetings, as to say, you know, what my thoughts are, but 100%, I completely agree with you. I think in with these groups, it tends to be short-lived because they're not able to work together.
Mm.
Hopefully, with the TTIP being a political party, it will allow everybody to come in, voice their opinion, and us collectively come together with what the best decision at the time. It might not be exactly what you wanted, but because we're now being a bit more political, we can actually keep everybody together and almost be impartial to the smaller things, but get your opinion. What how can we help your group? How can we help your group? Okay, this is where we land. You know, can we work together on this? And I think having somebody to mediate that is going to help a lot for a lot of these organizations that have popped up and disappeared, to actually pop up, stay, and then actually work together and hopefully become one big force to be reckoned with.
You know, forgive me if I'm being the eternal optimist, but a lot of what we've spoken about in terms of your aspirations, because that's what's underpinned all of these questions,
Mhm.
do tend to be or have kind of like focused on the short to medium term, and that is 6 to 18 months. Then what? At the end of the 18 months, what's your future plans? What is your focus? What is the end goal here?
It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be bit by bit. For example, at the moment, like I said, we're focusing on the Croydon and Sutton councils. We want to try and position somebody for 2022 to be mayor, and slowly roll out. If we'll utilize Croydon, when we start to implement the things that we want to implement, and we see the changes, we'll
Mm.
then take that to different communities and build again from there. People will have heard what we're doing. Again, Croydon is a difficult place to start, a very difficult place to start. But we're confident because we understand, because we all come from these areas, and areas that are like similar to Croydon, and then from there we'll slowly build out. It's gone, like I said, it's one step at a time, and could change as we're going along. Okay, we now pushed to here. Now we want this over here. We need to start working that way. But it's very difficult to see because especially now, things are changing so rapidly, day by day, week by week. It's very hard to navigate through the fog.
And if you forgive me, I feel that fog is going to get quite thick, because I'm sure that you would have seen that not a lot has actually changed for Black youth, Black people in the UK since those BLM marches.
Mhm.
Nothing has changed except the date. So I do feel as though, as I mentioned, your job is going to be fruitful, but it's not going to be over in, say, 6 to 12 months. This is like you're in there for the long haul. I mean,
Mhm.
just focusing on that long haul, what would be success for you? What would be, okay, we've arrived, we are actually making waves here? What does success look like for the Taking the Initiative Party?
That's a very good question. It's a difficult one to say because I feel like there's always something to then achieve, something to then uh, battle against, something to then overcome. Um, but again, for the near future, I feel like, especially in specific areas, it's the crime rate, bringing that down. It's like I said, the relationship between police force and youth not feeling so much as a them and us. People just understand that they're there to do a job, and they actually stand by the job that they're doing, and understand a lot of the times as well, these guys don't even know their own what's in their own job description, and what and this is what I'm saying about them not being fully trained. They should
Yeah.
know everything inside and out, back to front, and stand by it, because it's there to, and understand that they're there to protect us, not anything else. They're there to protect the people that they're governing and that they're serving. Schools, I would like to do a lot more in the schools. Like I said, I would love to see some kind of martial art. This is from my personal opinion. Some kind of martial arts involved in schools to help focus kids' attention and keep them. I think it does. Just having a focus, anything, regardless of what it is. It could be dance, it could be music. When people have that focus, I've seen it for myself. It does change them. And regardless of what they may be going home to, they have something to hold on to that's positive, that keeps them coming back. But also, like I said, the fact that schools are not teaching kids about life and how to do well and be successful in life. I remember I was actually running a company, a small company, and still didn't fully understand what taxes were. And I'm like, that's crazy. I had to kind of just figure it out as I was going along, and that's scary for me at the time. But in general, I feel like the school systems are not teaching us what is necessary for when we leave, which is not. And I've seen I've worked both in private schools and public schools, and there's a massive difference. There definitely is a massive difference in what's being taught on one side to the next. Schools, I think, is a massive one, massively important. Just more helping a lot of youngsters become entrepreneurs as well. I think that gives them, again, another meaning for life. Being able to provide for themselves and do something that they're passionate about, whatever it is going to help them stay away from the unnecessary, and just push more success into these communities, instead of just hearing the same old stories. I think the less and less that we start to hear about it, about these things, and the more and more we start seeing positive, hearing positive stories in our communities, is when I feel like we're on our way to success.
Amazing. Just before we wrap up, one of the things, again, that kind of acts as a stumbling block and basically dissolves a party is funding. Are you solid enough in your funding? I mean, is this something that people need to help with? Do you guys need donations, contributions? How are you actually funded? How are you actually managing finances at the moment?
At the moment, we're a conglomerate of a lot of different businesses as well. Even me personally, I'll put my own money into making certain things happen, and like that. This is why I say, while we're trying to push the government to do the right thing, we'll just get on with it ourselves, by hook or by crook. No matter however we need to make it happen, we will make it happen. There's a lot of successful businessmen and women that are involved in our community,
right?
And there's specific people positioned within our party that is, okay, we need this is how we're going to work for it, and everyone just kind of gets on board. Are you able to help out here? Yes, everyone kind of gets on board, and I'm sure, yes, later on we may need a help and every little bit of help. Any little thing helps. But for now, one thing that I'm proud of, this is one of the reasons why I'm proud of being involved in this kind of thing, is because we're all pushing in the same direction and happy to spend out of our own pockets to do so, because it's important. So every time I have a fight, I'm excited to, not just for the fight, to come back and be like, okay, what can I do now? What can I help with what I've just done? What I've just earned? How can I help? What can we put back in? And I think that needs to become the norm as well. The more people that we start bringing in, the more influencers that we start bringing in as well. They need to also know that there's going to be a commitment to themselves. But yes, I'm sure there's going to be, I don't want to misquote anything, but I'm sure they're going to be like maybe crowdfunders if necessary. However we need to do it to make it. But again, just come in. If you like the sound of what we're doing, then be a part of it. And being a part of it doesn't necessarily mean even putting your hand in your pocket. You could just come and show up at an event. If you can even help us out at an event, all these little things help.
I mean, just on everything being connected and people being able to help, Are there any plans to have any overseas linkages? Because I would have thought the journey, the aspirations, and what you're trying to do has resonance with our brothers and sisters overseas. I mean, just on that, I just wanted to get your take on what's actually transpired overseas. I mean, you would have seen the storming of the Capitol building. What's your take on that?
I think it's a similar take on what a lot of people have said. It was a very different response to when we were marching.
Yeah,
a very different response. But at the same time, there's positive and negative in everything. There's a lot of conspiracy theories as well about the people that are involved in the marches, purposely trying to ignite violence and draw like negative attention to something that's supposed to be very positive. Me personally, I genuinely feel like the world is going a bit upside down at the moment. But sometimes, there has to be a bit of chaos before there is peace. I'd say. There's a bit of order, yeah. And we are definitely going through that chaos at the moment. And yes, but to bring back to your question, 100%, their political system is very different, extremely different. So yes, we are going to have to make connections over there, but fully understand exactly how to navigate through that political system. It's a different beast altogether.
Yeah.
And I think it's more important at present to make sure we fully understand and they are successful with what we're doing over here, and then figure out how we're going to mimic elsewhere. But 100%, yes. So this party is forever, is worldly. We would like to see the effects of our party in other places in the world. But for right now, like I say, it's one step at a time. Focus on what we're doing here, get it right, get the system in place, actually affect the change that we want to affect, and then look to mirror that.
Just before I wrap up, how can people actually help financially? Is there a website they can go to? Are there donations that they can make? Where can all of this happen?
Again, I've been told as well, just get people through the door and literally go on to ttip.org.uk and firstly see if there is anything in there, one that you would even like to add, one that is something you're familiar with and you're like, I could probably even help in that area, and just help with your services. We're willing to open the door to absolutely everybody to make sure, because one thing again, with all these guys that I'm working with, happy to be fact checked, happy to be corrected, and happy to change. We're not doing the same thing that you were talking about. These guys are we never apologize. And no. We are human. We will make mistakes here and there. We'll admit those mistakes. We'll correct those mistakes, and we'll push forward. And I think that's the difference. Just come on board. Go to the website. First things first. Try to get onto one of our meetings. You can even put input. Everyone usually says their bit at the beginning, and then they open the floor. If you have something that you want to say it, please. We want everyone's voices to be heard. We'll be jotting down notes and then seeing if we can affect change. And then from there, ask the question, how else can I help? And we will guide you. We will guide you from there. But the first thing is just get through the door. Just open the door, see what you like.
Michael Venom Page, this has been a fantastic canter through what I feel, and I'm sure, a lot of people watching will feel, is an important journey and a turning point, hopefully, for a lot of people who you're going to affect. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you, because originally we were booked just for 20 minutes. We're now just past an hour, and I wanted to thank you so much for your candidness and for your time. Really appreciate that, my brother.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and I think it's great that you picked up on these things and you want to draw attention to it, and it's great. So thank you for having me.
Yo. Shots fired for fuck's sake. Shots fired for fuck's sake. You know that shots fired. Shots fired, yeah. You know that shots fired. Shots fired, yeah. Shots fired for fuck's sake. You know the shots fired. Shots